All right, joining us now, Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas. Senator, if I thought for a second that any of their arguments held true, I would consider it. But they're not taking the steps that are necessary to prevent anything like what happened in Uvalde, Texas, from happening again. If they were, I would admit it. I'd say, you know what, that makes sense. I don't see any sense here. Did you get a chance to read that bill before you voted on it?
Hey, Sean, it's good to be on with you and all your listeners again. No, unfortunately, Chuck Schumer brought that bill to the floor just minutes after it was released yesterday. I voted just on that grounds alone against proceeding to the debate on it. I've now had a chance to review all 80 pages of it. I'll be voting against it as well. I think that it puts too many rights of law-abiding Americans at peril, especially with vague and general terms that we're going to delegate to Merrick Garland at the Department of Justice, who sick the feds on parents going to school boards, or delegate to unelected federal judges when you're talking about a core right. Now, that clip you just played, Sean, about Joe Biden talking about banning assault weapons, I think goes to show why there's so much skepticism about these liberals when it comes to regulating guns. They don't even know what they're talking about. Joe Biden was talking about banning assault weapons. Sean, as you and so many of your listeners know, there is no such thing as an assault weapon. It is a fiction of liberals and lawyers in Washington. There are rifles, there are shotguns, there are pistols. Those are specific types of firearms. But an assault weapon is something that is defined by liberals and lawyers in Washington that would encompass some of the most popular rifles in America. So there is a deep reservoir of distrust among gun-owning, law-abiding Americans about letting Joe Biden or Merrick Garland or Vanita Gupta at the Department of Justice with Merrick Garland pass any kind of regulations or have any kind of discretion when it comes to the firearms we can own.
You may not know this, Senator. I've said it publicly many times that my mom was a prison guard, and she had a revolver, Smith & Wesson, if I remember correctly. And at a very young age, I think I was 10, maybe 11, my mother, knowing that they didn't have, fingerprint safes like we have today, next to my bed, I have a fingerprint safe. And in seconds, I can open it, and there is my handguns are right there, okay, if I ever, God forbid, need it. I keep my shotgun in a place right nearby. If God forbid I ever need that. I always ask liberals, well, what are you going to do if somebody breaks into your house and wants to harm you and harms your family? They never have a good answer, nor can they define what an assault weapon is anyway. But really, ultimately, and now they're starting to say it, some on the left, they ultimately don't believe in the Second Amendment. They don't want an armed citizenry. They don't care that it says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. They ignore all of that. Why?
Because they want the government to have more control over your lives. They don't want individual citizens empowered to make decisions for themselves. That's been the progressive mindset going back 150 years to Woodrow Wilson, Sean. And your ability to protect yourself and protect your home and protect your family is central to your independence, to your freedom. The Second Amendment was not about hunting. It was not about sport shooting. It certainly protects those activities, but at bottom, the Second Amendment was about your right to protect your own life and the lives of those you love. And, Sean, I know you support the police as much as I do, but when seconds count, the police are minutes away.
Well, that's the point. No matter how great the response time is, it doesn't matter. And by the way, and this is important, too, everyone points to Uvalde, Texas, and what happened there. That is not the norm. Cops usually that I know, and everybody that I know that has gone into law enforcement, they're all the same. They're the guys that see the problem, see people at risk, and run right towards it. We saw it that day on that ball field when Steve Scalise was shot and nearly killed that day. In an open field with a pistol up against a rifle sniper that was hidden, these officers ran across the field. They were sitting ducks, Senator. Anybody that had any skill whatsoever with a rifle could have taken those two officers out, but they did it anyway. Uvalde is the exception. It is not the norm what happened there.
Yeah, that's very true, Sean. Those Capitol Police officers at that ballpark 5 years ago probably saved multiple lives of senators and congressmen and probably innocent bystanders as well. And I do believe they reflect the norm among our brave law enforcement officers around the country. And even in that school in Uvalde, from the preliminary reports I've read, there were officers who wanted to storm the classroom to try to kill that shooter, to try to get aid to those who had been wounded but had not yet perished. But perhaps the chief who is in command on the scene or others restrained them. So even in the Uvalde school, there were still officers who were acting in the finest and bravest traditions of law enforcement in this country.
Yeah, let's talk about a few other things, if you don't mind. Senator, I think in my lifetime, we have not had an economy this bad since Jimmy Carter was president, and maybe it's even worse than Jimmy Carter. I don't know about you, but everybody that I know that's paying over $5 a gallon for gasoline is struggling. Everybody that I know is watching. We now have a report today, trillions of dollars in retirees' stock market investments, their 401ks, et cetera, their retirement plans, they're now missing. The problem I have more than any other problem is, and I'm hoping for a wave election in 2022 in November, and the Republicans will take the House and the Senate, but we actually have to win two elections to reverse this. We have to win 2022 and 2024, unless the Democrats somehow would be deprogrammed from their climate alarmist religious cultism that, won't even recognize that we could go back to energy independence ourselves instead of begging Iran and Venezuela and the Saudis and OPEC.
Yeah, Sean, Arkansans are suffering badly trying to make ends meet at the end of the week and the end of the month with gas at $4.50 gallons in our state. In other states, it's $6 or even $7 a gallon. You see the same thing at the grocery store. I was speaking with a Walmart official recently, and they said they've seen a decline in hot dog and hamburger buns and an increase in white bread looking ahead to the 4th of July because people are trying to cut corners and save a few pennies everywhere they can. So they'll use white bread on their hot dogs and their hamburgers when they grill out in a week because it'll save a few pennies for them. That's how dire it is for so many families. And you're right that it starts this fall with winning back the House and the Senate and putting the brakes on the Democratic agenda. But it doesn't finish this fall. We have to win in 2024 as well. That's not just the White House, Sean, but it's also winning in what is a very good cycle for us in the Senate. You have a lot of Democratic senators coming up in 2024, like John Tester and Sherrod Brown and Tammy Baldwin and Bob Casey, who have never run for office in a bad environment for Democrats. And with Joe Biden as president, I'm pretty confident, unfortunately, that it's going to continue to be a bad environment for the Democrats. I mean, a year ago, Democrats were talking about Joe Biden being the second coming of FDR or LBJ. I think at this point, most of them would just be satisfied if he could claw his way back to being the second coming of Jimmy Carter.
All right, quick break. More with Senator Tom Cotton, the great state of Arkansas, as we continue. 800-941-SEAN, our number. We'll get to your calls. Final half hour coming up straight ahead.
Hey, you.
All right, we continue with Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton is with us. So we have a couple of tough hold states. For example, Pennsylvania's always been a purple state. I think Dr. Oz will win that race. I think it's going to be a tough race. We have a pickup opportunity with Herschel Walker in Georgia. We can pick up potentially New Hampshire. We've got to help out our friend Ron Johnson because they're spending tens and tens of millions of dollars to take him down. Pick up possibilities in both Arizona, Nevada. I think we can get a more conservative senator from the great state of Alaska. You're right about the state of Washington. We got to hold Ohio. I don't expect a problem there, or Florida or South Carolina. I think North Carolina is a little bit more difficult, but I think Bud's a great candidate. Where do you see other pickup opportunities?
I think you kind of nailed all of them, Sean. I do just want to single out one state you mentioned, which is Washington State. Now, I know a lot of your listeners are probably thinking, Washington State, that's deep blue, we have no chance. It's actually not that Democratic. After those top four, New Hampshire, Georgia, Arizona and Nevada for our pickup opportunities. Washington is arguably the very next one. We have a great candidate there named Tiffany Smiley. Tiffany has a wonderful story. Her husband, Scotty, was blown up in Iraq the year before I was in Iraq. He was permanently blinded. She quit her job as a nurse in Washington State. She moved to Walter Reed. She cared for him, and she fought for him because the Army wanted to medically retire him. They didn't. He became the first active-duty officer who was blind for 10 years. She and Scotty have become great advocates for veterans, and now she wants to be the advocate for Washington in the United States Senate. I can tell you there's one person whose opinion matters most who knows that this is a competitive race, and that is Patty Murray. Patty Murray started running negative ads against Tiffany Smiley 2 weeks ago, which tells you all you need to know about
She's scared.
what she thinks about the race.
I've seen some polling out there, some internal polling, and you're absolutely right. It's definitely should be on the list. I know in the House they've identified 75 separate districts that they are going to be competitive in. If I look, I actually believe the New York governor's race, if they pay attention to it, it's definitely an outside chance. It's a long shot because so many New Yorkers have gotten the hell out of there, gotten out of here, and they moved to Arkansas and Florida and the Carolinas and Tennessee and Texas. But, I think people are that fed up. My biggest problem is with all these economic problems that are so self-induced and giving up energy independence. I don't see any course reversal anytime soon. I don't think we're going to have under Joe Biden or the Democratic Socialist New Green Deal Party. I don't think we're ever going to have the end of big government is over and the end of welfare as we know it. I don't think those words will ever come out of their mouths. I don't think they're ever going to say, you know what, gas prices are really high. We need to go back to Trump's policies on energy. They're not going to do it.
Yeah, I'm afraid not, Sean, because high gas prices, remember, is not an unintended consequence. It's the intended consequence. Barack Obama's Secretary of Energy once said that we have to find a way. We have to find a way to get gas up to the price that it is in Europe, where it's $7, $8, even $9 a gallon. Joe Biden's done a pretty good job of almost getting us there in this country. Joe Biden said on the campaign trail, I promise you, I guarantee you, we will end fossil fuel, which is madness. Sean, fewer than 1% of the cars on the road these days are electric. Yes, and that's exactly what they're trying to do.
Let me ask you a question. Your name gets bantered about quite a bit for the office of the presidency. Any chance you'll consider running in 2024?
Well, thank you for the question, Sean, and I appreciate
you're about to tell me to drop dead. You're not going to answer. Go ahead. You can say it in a nice way.
I appreciate the interest and the expressions of support I get from around the country. But right now, I am really focused on stopping the worst of this Democratic agenda in Washington and making sure that we do win back not just the House and the Senate. We've got election right in front of us in 4 months. So
Senator, thank you. Hope you had a happy Father's Day. Appreciate you being with us.
Likewise, Sean. Thank you.